For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today we are traveling to a land down under with the thriller, slasher, and official Horrific Hope Film Festival selection from 2023. We're talking about Bliss of Evil today. Now, this video is coming a lot later than I originally anticipated. Originally, this video was supposed to line up with the Blu-ray release date, which happened back in October. So if the filmmakers haven't been watching this, I'm sorry, life kind of got crazy, but let's jump in and talk about the movie. I honestly don't know how to talk about this movie without doing spoilers, so I'm going to actually just read the synopsis right from IMDb. Cue my movie phone voice. In 1997, Brisbane, a sound engineer must confront her trauma when she and her girlfriend's grunge band are trapped in a recording studio by a shadowy killer. Right out the gate, I feel the need to talk about and address how refreshing of a slasher this is. It might sound kind of cliche to say this, but this is not your average, ordinary slasher where you have secondary characters existing solely to be victims for the killer, and you have the final girl that the film studies on, and that's kind of, it's just shallow. Instead, the filmmakers actually use the formula of a slasher as a gateway to really do a character study on overcoming trauma, or what that looks like, or what trauma triggers looks like. I feel like an equivalent character journey, just to kind of give audiences a kind of like a touch point of familiarity, would actually be Chris's arc from Friday the 13th Part 3. Sharnee Tones plays our protagonist, Isla, in this movie, and I think she does a phenomenal job. Like, she is absolutely 100% the heartbeat of this film. Not only is the story crafted around her, but there are moments in the film where sound is completely taken away, and you're just kind of left with her facial expressions. And there's just something about the way that she portrays trauma on her face that it just absolutely gives you chills, but also at the same time just kind of leaves you breathless. And I love the arc that her character has, because you kind of get to see like little glimpses of the beginning of who she was prior to the trauma, and then kind of where she is now at the beginning of the film, and kind of the growth that she makes. She's a fantastic final girl. I really love the gags in this. It's limited as they may feel at some times. They also, at the same time, they will satisfy people that are coming to slashers simply for the kills. This film, it feels kind of like a distant cousin of Scream and how smart it can be, because, again, I go back to that comment, it's not an average slasher. It's not making a film exist simply to kill off its cast. It is developing and exploring the relationship between these characters, and not only the characters, but also at the same time, the fascinating aspect about this is that it also is connecting the killer and the final girl. I won't talk about how exactly, because it does dive into spoiler territory, but I really do love the way that the writers kind of take all of these characters and really give them depth and history, and kind of, for lack of a better word, trauma bond them together, and kind of show how they're all connected in the exploration of those connections. What I think is interesting about this movie is that typically in the fashion of, take Scream, for example, you're seeing a group of friends go through the trauma, and you never really kind of see the aftermath, with the exception of Sydney. Bliss of Evil feels really different, because you're actually getting to see the group of friends post-trauma, and then kind of going through another traumatic event all over again. And it's a fascinating flip on what we've come to expect from slashers. I really love all of the characters involved in this film, whether even the characters that feel kind of one note or feel like they are just there to, provide comic relief. Everyone has a purpose, and it is contributing to the larger story, which I absolutely just thought was handled exceptionally well. I keep going back to this term refreshing, and I even love how they made the killer in this. I don't want to handle it, don't want to give anything away, but this is not Jason, this is not Freddy, this is not Pinhead, this is not Chucky, this is not Michael. This is something completely unique, and again, it plays into the themes of mental health and trauma and how all of that really affects everything, and it's such a different type of killer. Let's run this one through the Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Bliss of Evil a easy 4 out of 5. I think this movie is gripping, it's riveting, it's performed well, it's written well, it's directed well. It's such a refreshing, and it really turns the slasher genre upside down with a lot of the character choices and a lot of the narrative choices that it makes. And I don't think you've ever kind of seen a slasher really in this vein. Typically, this is the point of the video where I'll talk about a theme of mental health, but two things. I think this film handles mental health way better than I ever could actually address it. And two, you can hear the co-writer and director Joshua Morris talk all about it. And when we sat down to talk with him this past spring on an episode of Abyss Gazing, where we also covered Evil Dead, I'll provide that link in the show notes below. And if you stay to the end of this video, you can watch it right here on YouTube. Bliss of Evil is now available to own on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital from Bayview Entertainment. So pick it up. I guarantee that you will not be disappointed. On the subject of mental health, however, you will find links in the show notes below for our mental health resource library. Additionally, in the show notes below, you guys will find links to our podcast network, more movie reviews like this, our Patreon, links to all of our socials, and that subscribe button. So until next time, remember to stay classy.